Hello, event prof. Welcome to day 2 of techsytalk Global. I am so excited to be here again with you all and still on fire from all the content yesterday. I got a bunch of emails last night from people who were blown away by the content, and a good number of you who are watching from around the world who were not able to attend or you saw part of it. So happy to have you back here for day 2. Please take a moment and share this stream. If you are in Facebook in our group, you can just click that invite button and invite your event profs friends to join the group. They'll see this pinned right to the top. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, you can go ahead and share the video on your feed. We've worked really hard, me and the team, to pull together some great content for you, and we would love to have as many people in the industry watch as possible. So thank you. If you are watching on Facebook, make sure you go to streamyard.com/Facebook. It's a little checkbox where we can see your name and your picture associated with your comments. We love to see your comments in the chat wherever you're watching. I know we are live on Circle, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all these places. So please do use that chat. Let us know that you are here. Let us know what you're thinking. We can try to take questions all throughout for the different sessions. So we want to make sure that we know who you are. So give us that access if you can. All it does is let us see your name and picture associated with your comment instead of saying random Facebook user. But I see we already have Megan with us from San Diego. Jennifer's here backstage with us from Mississippi. We have Dia. Dia, welcome back. Thank you for joining us yesterday on the stage and today being here to watch us. We also have many of our great speakers already behind the scenes, locked and loaded. These are professional speakers. They've got their slides shared. We are ready to go, and we have a great day of content. Before we introduce our first speaker, I want to just again do a little bit of housekeeping. If you have missed any of the sessions and you want to go back and get them, pop into our Circle community. You can go to techsytalk.com/member. It is free to join. All the content from yesterday, which was about 2.5 hours, is there in one video. In the coming days, you will see that we will chop them into individual sessions. We will make them available as video, audio only on its own podcast, transcript, and notes so that you can get it in whatever format you want. But that's going to take us a few days to process. So in the meantime, you just can't wait. Make sure you jump into Circle and watch the full videos. All of that other content will also be in our Circle community. So make sure you join that. And if you have not, we talked yesterday a lot about the experience profiles, which is a great way when we're thinking about attendee experience to really get to know your audience and how they like to absorb information and experience your events. So figure out what your profile is, and you'll actually be able to see with techsytalk that we've designed all of the agenda to fit the different experience profiles. So make sure you do that. All right, let's just see here. We have, oh, hi, Peggy. Thank you for joining us. So many great people today. So please, again, hit that share button. Let people know that we are live. Tell them to join us because we are going to jump into our very first session. We have Mary Ann Pierce, who is the founder of Map Digital. She has been a mentor of mine, whether she knows it or not. I don't know if that's official for many years since joining the industry. Mary Ann, thank you so much for taking some time to join us today. How are you?
Oh, Liz, it's a pleasure. And I'm your mentor. You're my mentor. I'm just so delighted just to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's the best part about mentors is if like you could find one little thing to give back, then you don't feel like you're just taking.
Two-way street. It's all about collaboration. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today, about the new events 3.0 and about collaboration. So great.
Everyone is talking about, I'm going to let you take it off. Everyone's talking about monetizing. What does this new world look like? So we're going to dive right in. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much. As Mary Ann Pierce, the founder and CEO of Map Digital. And being virtual only for nearly 2 years was extraordinarily disruptive for our events industry. Even we at Map Digital, where we've been producing webcast events for over 2 decades, really felt a little bit of heat, like we are all in a new land. However, we believe that there were discoveries that virtual revealed that will lead us into an events 3.0 model that will enable new growth and monetization. In fact, we wrote an ebook in which you can download from our website. The 3 discoveries that we identified at Map Digital are that events are content marketing engines, events are communities, and events are interconnected platforms. Today, we'll explore events are interconnected platforms and how to build this tech stack to grow your audience from it and to uncover new revenue and monetization. So, just a little background. This September, Map Digital celebrated our 20th anniversary. We've been on the cutting edge of digitalization of events since my first live webcast back in 1996. And for reference, here's a diagram of our MetaMeetings platform, a SaaS events platform that we've been building for 20 years. Working with our investment banking clients, we've built an integrated event platform from on-site badging to RFID, content management, and webcasting, all on a rich interactive website, the MetaMeetings website, and we even throw in digital signage. We're the only tech provider for most of our clients' conferences, and we go from on-site connectivity to data analytics. You can see by this diagram that one of Map Digital's core tenet is integration is innovation. But we believe that we finally have hit the tipping point of the digital transformation in our industry. The art will be in designing experiences for our attendee customers that will enhance their experience and delight them, and will also deliver new paths for growth and for revenue. So let's roll the video of events ARC as content marketing engines. No sound. Mm. So I'm asked to talk over it. So regretfully sorry, we did test. Anyway, we're going into our process of how we take a video from an event and bring it into a content marketing piece. So basically, we're showing you some examples here of some of the work we've done, and webcasting or video on the web is incredibly effective. And then to do it, we have to work with other partners. This is where the collaboration comes from. This is where integrating with your partners. And these are our core partners that we are APIing into. So as we like to say, integration is innovation. And then here's some long tail uses for those snippets. They can be used for news direct, into PR publishing, social media, into your special interest groups, community websites. We believe that content fuels the digital campfires that build community. So there we go. Thank you so much. Well, I have to apologize, but we did test, but thank goodness we had captions. And that's one of the key tenets when you do anything on the web, especially for social media. We watch our videos on our phone and we read them, so always have those captions. So with the rise of virtual, video became standard with our Zooms, and video that was once very expensive to produce now was a byproduct of virtual. However, these files are huge and they're very difficult to manage. They need to be careful. You need to develop a carefully calibrated workflow to build an assembly line, so to speak, to push these big video files on their transformational journey. And you need to work with other platforms. Mapping out your video's journey from platform to platform must be orchestrated so that the platforms do the heavy lifting, not you. You want to work with providers that have open APIs. That's application protocol interface. And that's like a digital handshake. And this is all about interconnected platforms, which is the third discovery that we discovered going virtual. And they have to be willing to work with each other. And that's all about Events 3.0, is about interconnecting platforms so that you can get the customized, bespoke experience that you need for your events and for your KPIs. All sounds really logical, but let's break it down. First of all, each session is given a numbered file that it takes to its whole transformation. This is basic. So when it comes off of MetaMeetings onto the AI platform, onto the machine learning platform, it all has the same number. So it can be tracked and any data associated with it can be mapped. It's really important to, when you have your webcast or coming from your events, that the videos are edited, the heads and tails. I mean, send the neatest version into it before it goes into the AI and the machine learning platform. And this will make a very good use of your time and post. It's really key when we get into content optimization to have a good transcript. The transcript first passes by artificial intelligence and then take the time to have it proofed by a human. This adds a little bit of time and cost, but we work in financial services and a misplaced decimal point can cost a lot of problems and a lot of money. And then from our platform, we push the edited video to our partners, AMP Digital in London. They're on the IBM Watson platform, and they make these videos searchable. As you saw in the video with the one from the UN, you can search by keywords, and they render captions in 6 different languages and allows your attendees to also create their own playlist. It's important to have a clear workflow established. Once again, we just can't say it enough in practice. And we're APIing into these other platforms. We're in the process of building them or in different stages of that, but it's really important to have the workflow. That's where the art really comes into. Also, these files, video files, are huge. So you want to be able to have everything in the cloud, whether it's Amazon or whatever cloud provider you're on. You don't want to have your videos on an AV text hard drive and searching to upload. Everything in the cloud is elegant. Also, when you do these searches on these AI platforms, the speech to text AI, mark the words that are searched for and continue to put that into your attendees' sort of content data wallet. We'll talk a little bit about how important you're collecting and assessing the data content that your attendees are clicking by watching webcast or the repeat or the live or repeat of this session is really critical, how we're using it for some business and monetization applications. And a special note with the content usage, pre-pandemic, we have our sales team with the banks, and they have their relationships, and they didn't think that who watched what webcast and who downloaded, and that metadata, basically this attendee's really interested in software companies, or this one's really interested in telecommunications. That metadata, they call that, they weren't really interested. And then the pandemic happened, and they only had our content data really to measure. Let's say they all had an epiphany and they are really utilizing that extra critical advantage that these people, basically, this is what they like to do. They might tell you on a survey they like something, but how they click really tells you what their behavior is. It's really important that we're trying to now to find some monetization of that content data. We're looking at establishing with one-on-one meetings. It's not just people's marketing data, how many emails it took to open it or what their history of been attending a conference, but really what sessions they attended. Each session has metadata. Can we match them with other attendees there based on their content usage, and or match them with sponsors and exhibitors? I mean, basically have a more detailed profile in which to do that matching. This is something that we're working on. We call it leads as a service. And also, when we get to these videos, we also send out to our new partner, which is a woman-run company out of Ireland named Gist. It's a machine learning platform that the videos, when we send them to them, they automatically generate a 3-minute snippet. And that means we don't have to get the transcripts and edit it ourselves. The machine does it for us. We just did an event with them, and they were quite good. Some needed a little bit of work and tweaking, but it saved us tremendous amounts of time. It takes us about 24 hours and 3 people to generate the snippets the old way. And this way we have kind of like, a first rough cut draft that we can go and move for. And, it reduces time until we publish, and we can maximize the lift that you get from the conferences if you get that content marketing campaign out quickly. So basically with social media, I think that we all know that video on the web is just incredibly powerful. And I think that we should try to utilize this as much as possible, this great content of your conferences, and see if you can also monetize it. So anyway, great. So I'm getting notes. Okay, anyway, and then basically, producing events are complicated. So if you're going to start thinking about content marketing, have at least 3 teams. I mean, have your content people, your speaker ready in the beginning, have your production team, and have another team dedicated to the content marketing. It's really difficult to do, and we want to make sure that, we're so exhausted, it doesn't get like dropped off. So we're going to show you now a recent example of, I just mentioned it, of an event that we just produced at the UN. It's the Global Green Inclusive Innovation Summit, and it was held to pre-COPE and pre-G20 that are happening right now, and talking about getting more women involved in certain STEM for renewable energies and agriculture and space, because there's huge contracts coming out and helping women to get some of that, the cut of the money that's being spent to get to establish the SDGs, or to realize the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So we put our first copy, all the videos through GIST, and our aim was to build a community from zero. We had just started the LinkedIn page and the MetaMeetings website. And by the end of 2 weeks, we have 182 followers on LinkedIn and 82 unique users on the MetaMeetings platform, where they can go back and watch the sessions and download the reports. And we believe most of this is because of the video snippets that we put out there. So we're going to play a little snippet that was generated from the UN. So we're going to see if we have the sound problem here.
Always be networking. For this conference, we used 3 women-run platforms. DLZP for registration. I met Lisa over there, Burnett, at the Global Summit of Women in Lisbon. She's an Amazon partner, and I need to be. So therefore, we decided to collaborate. Also GIST, which is a women-run company, and I met them through my work.
Okay, so literally, we just sent the videos off to GIST, and they found that perfect segment for us that we were talking about, getting more women with platforms and building it. Also, there's for women out there who have tech companies. I think you all know the White House has doubled the quota for the DEA, or women-owned small businesses and minorities. So any of your procurement offices are really looking to hire women-run platforms. So we're kind of thinking of putting a super group together, because we're all friends and we all do complementary things. So that's just kind of like happened from our networking, always be networking. So that's great. So this slide basically is sort of like, like the Star Wars map, what we think can happen. We think video is such a powerful tool, and we know that major advertising agencies and spend a fortune to develop content, and events just basically have content. So can we find a way to harness it and to use it to grow your audiences? Maybe people who couldn't attend, but they'll be attracted by that by the video. Also, we discovered in a lot of our testing and a lot of the work that we've done, and most of our content marketing work has been done for our social good clients, because we need to build their networks and their audiences, is that the speakers have tremendous, many of them have tremendous networks. So you make their brand and they help make your brand. So it's really interesting. And then you could also take those snippets, and if you work with Rachel Stevens of Snowball, you just give her some nice, some lovely little videos in which she can really amplify on her platform. So I think that's about what I have here. I mean, I think the long tail of it is that it's, we say video content's a gift that keeps on giving. It attracts people to come back and to gather together. I think it'd be a major play to establish communities. You have to feed content to those digital campfires to keep people gathering together. So without further ado, just want to thank you very much. And, with Map Digital, events are content marketing engines. And, our motto is integration is innovation. So any questions, Liz, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry that video didn't work. I'm glad we figured out the audio. That was, I think, we just had to put someone else on stage to make it all work. Do you happen to have the link for that video? Do you think we can get it to people in case they want to watch the audio? Let's do that.
Yeah,
we'll make the
absolutely. I'll send both videos out to you just for fun. And yeah, absolutely. And it's because we have one of our team members is also a professional actor, so you missed the voice of God voiceover. So it's
oh, we got to watch that. Okay, we have to.
So Ed will be very disappointed he didn't get more fans. So but this is something that we've been working on for a number of years, and the pandemic just really clicked it into motion. And looking at some of the work for the Global Summit of Women we've done, and Capital is a Force for Good, and we're always working for advancing women and in STEM. It's just been really interesting. It's almost been, we had one snippet we put up about 3 years ago, and on Facebook, unsupported, no buy. And within 2 days, it had 2,000 views because that speaker had like half the world. And, so there was something there that we wanted to see. How can we extend the goodness of all the work we do for conferences and to build, and that data we get, we know we can monetize it when it comes to that matching.
That's the power of virtual. In-person events have their own powers, obviously. Megan says events are content. This is something we've known, like you said, for years. We're just producing tons of content all the time, whether it's in person, virtual. She just had an episode about that. There are a few questions for you, so I want to see if we can get a few of them in. Chloe wants to know how can a machine know what the event highlights are? How does that work? Obviously, we can't go into detail, but
it's really interesting. We've come so fast. Especially post-pandemic. Deep tech, machine learning, quantum that's happening. It's really incredible because I played with machine learning on Watson about 4 years ago, and we were laughing. It was like almost a comedy what was coming back. The machines are just getting smarter and smarter, and every time, the more you use it, they get it, and it's natural language processing. So they're mapping. Like robots can think. So it really was surprising. Some of the clips needed a little bit of a massage, but just having that first run, that meet about an hour later, and then the humans could do the tweaking, saved us tremendous amounts of time. Plus, we wanted to get all these snippets up before COP27, which is happening in Egypt right now. We had a reason to get them up because we wanted to keep the momentum going. And also our people are presenting the findings at COP. And isn't it nice to have a little snippet to show instead of just talking about it? So yeah, I think we're still early days with GIST. They're still going to they're just starting. They haven't had their first seed round. There's probably other ones around that use it, but I think you should keep your eye on that.
What would be cool is if you could match the content that's being shared. This is just random Liz idea with like a lot of platforms are building in emojis, and you can see the chat, for example. And if you could match the content of attendee reaction with the content and be able to clip based on what attendees were really engaging with.
You're an anthropologist, data scientist. That's great.
Someone else build it, and I will be happy.
I'm taking that.
Do it, Marianne. Okay, we have one more question. We have to jump to our next session, but John wants to know, what would you say are your top 3 event types or approaches that have been most successful this year?
What do you mean that event types? Like how
VIPs, keynotes, like in general, where is all this content mostly coming from? I think.
See, we come from basically the financial services, and we're mandated to webcast, whether we're on site or virtual only. So we're getting a lot of the work that we get are companies saying, buy my stock. And that's they trade and they leave. We are looking at a lot of stuff with thought leadership as far as with ESGs and DEA and all DEIA. Now they added ability, and that kind of the really good or very time-based content is what really is something that needs to be maximized. Not all content's created equal,
Sure.
And content that's very newsy and that will change the world, it's a content that you need to amplify.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Always love learning more about the work that you guys are doing. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right. So we are going to move right into our next session with Tahira and Dean. Tahira is another person that I have watched and stalked and learned so much from over the years. And she has done a ton of great work. So we are going to do a fun session with her where she's going to have a little bit of content to share around intention. And then hopefully we can have some good amount of time for Q&A. So please put your questions in. But first of all, hi, thank you for joining.
Hi. Thank you for having me. So much fun. Really great sessions yesterday. So thank you for bringing us that amazing content. And Marianne, all those women-owned businesses, I love that.
It's amazing.
So yeah, really good. I'm going to talk about the opposite of digital events. I'm going to just show you a bunch of examples from really fun live events we've been doing over the last
Yeah,
week.
we want to talk about it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Let's do it. I know that the slides are just going to come up, and what we're going to talk about first is, as probably a lot of people know, because I've got a lot of friends in this chat today, I wrote a book a few years ago, Intentional Event Design, and I think it says I have to share my slides again. Crazy. So I can just do them as, there they are, right there. There we go. So what's your intention? Is the thing. So people-centric, purpose-driven principles. This is what I based all of the work that I've been doing for the last 2 decades on. Businesses invest in events because they provide a catalyst for behavior change leading to business growth. So we're not talking about social events. We're not talking about really even fundraising events. Really, this is about, events that have a business purpose. And that participants attend events because we crave face-to-face opportunities for learning and intelligent conversations with like-minded individuals. We all know we've been doing digital. We've been doing digital really well for a long time, but we still love face-to-face. So let's talk about some of those. So I looked at some intentions of things that we want to do. And the first was to build anticipation. And this was just a great example from Sites Incentive Summit America's program earlier this year. And we were fortunate to work with Imprint Events Group, and they just made it so much fun. But some of the things that we did is we told people it was a Moulin Rouge theme. And so they all packed and came dressed. And it was so nice to see people just fully embracing the theme. When we did our general session in the morning at 11 o'clock, it ended at 11, and people were going off to do some activities for the afternoon. Well, the MC for the evening, you can see him there, Seth, came up and he sang a song about the evening, reminding people to do really important things like shower after they finish their activities before they came to the event that evening. And then, of course, once they arrived, there was the playbill that was going to let you know what was going to be happening. So it was just really, it was so nice to be back at a live event that people were really, really embracing. I also love a goof theme, which is my favorite typo of the day so far. So intention, technology is embedded. We live with technology. We all have our phones. We all have our things going on, and we need to have them. If you guys can just throw in the chat, I would love to know how many people were at IMEX this year. And if they had the opportunity while they were there to go through this encore experience that they created. It was really a pretty incredible experience that people walked through. What you're seeing there is the very first piece of it. So they went in with iPads, scanned a QR code. They were able to then talk with a buddy about a serious industry issue we're having, diversity or sustainability, depended on which element they happened to be at. And they did that for about 10 minutes or so. And then curtains opened, they went through, there was a large screen, emotive experience that people just came out like, what? I want to help save the planet, which is really what we want. So it was technology being used very purposefully to tell a story. And again, we're doing that in large scale. And we are doing that you've never been, Chloe. Oh my goodness. Now you've got something to add to your list. And the other is a destination experience where they're using VR. Again, something that it's pretty common now. But just a really great way to think about how we're going to embed different aspects of technology into what we're doing. Reward and celebrate. Again, I would just love to know anybody who's familiar with the Above and Beyond Foundation. They did, Tanisha, put on a really wonderful immersion experience. All right. So also great name. So with the Reward and Celebrate, the Above and Beyond Foundation is a foundation that started a few years ago now. And who they reward are the back of house and frontline service workers, generally in hotels, sometimes with DMCs as well. And they started out giving $10,000 awards when they first started. So people who really needed help, they were recognized by their management, recognized by their peers as someone who was really going above and beyond. During the pandemic, they did a range of $500 to $3,000 awards to help those same people. And we were able to, at this event, work with them. And surprise, one of the housekeepers from the hotel, she thought she was coming there to see her boss get rewarded, was called up onto stage to win an award. And then her family came up from backstage. And really, you can't have those moments for the people who work so hard in our industry and not be connected to it. It was just really incredible. Something that we don't always have at an event, can dancers, but we really, again, this is a celebratory Moulin Rouge fun evening. Why not have a little bit of fun to break up the different elements that happen through the evening? So that's what we did. Building trust. This is the most important intention that we can, I believe, bring to a live event. And this was an event that we produced in Switzerland. And it brought 50 people together for a very deep experience. And this first night, we had 12 people from 10 countries, and we created a 5-course dinner together. 2 of the people within this experience had just come from Poland, and this was in March, so the Ukraine war had just broken out. One of them had just finished planning a program for 500 insurance agents in Poland and joined us. And the other had just taken refugees into her home. And both of them came with the same attitude of the only way that we can help others is to help ourselves first, putting on our oxygen mask first. And so that's what they did. They came and joined us and really appreciated just the time to breathe and be with people they could really talk with about the vulnerability they felt for themselves and for our industry at this time and from that particular circumstance. I'll tell you when I knew that this was a very successful event was the final day. So remember, I was planning events for event planners. That's what I do. And so we had the final day, 25 people go up to the glacier, and they're going to go and have this amazing glacier experience. Well, as they get there, they make a weather call and the glacier closes, and they said, we can't do the experience. So typically what would happen at that time is I would get 25 messages from people across 4 different mediums telling me about this horrible thing had happened and their event was canceled, and nobody told me. So at that time, they were with a group of people that they enjoyed being with. The host of that group found a restaurant nearby. They all went out for a lovely 2-hour lunch, enjoyed delicious conversation, and were just happy to be doing that. I heard about it at 6:00 that night. So that was when I knew that they trusted that we were doing everything we could to give them the best experience that they had. And that was a really meaningful moment for me in my career. I'm not going to lie. I'm used to hearing about things quite a bit more than that. Welcome them. So intentions, let's find ways that we can make people feel included. Now, probably roping somebody isn't going to make everybody feel included, but in this case, that was a lot of fun. And that was actually our keynote speaker. I'm going to tell you about what she did in just a second. But we're coming into Vail. It was this really great historic venue. This all made sense. It was really good. Another event we did was at the Guinness Storehouse. And so these are the drummers waiting outside. They were waiting for a long time before people arrived, busload by busload. And April was cool. And, so I said, couldn't you have costumes with sleeves? And the larger guy in the middle is like, I don't need sleeves. But this guy beside me was like, I could use some sleeves. So we just had some fun with that. But it was a great way to welcome people. They really felt a sense of presence as they came in, something that the site board of directors does at every event. At some point, they will create a gauntlet. And as people are coming through, they are high-fiving and cheering people in. And what a way to welcome them. A really simple thing that any association board could do, any corporate board could do. But what a fun way for people to come through. Immerse them. So we did a couple of exercises this year. One of them was a wine listening exercise. It's a group called Wine Listening. They're based in Italy. They have mapped more than 2 million wines, and they match the pitch and the tone of the wine with the pitch and the tone of music. And in their app, it pairs with your Spotify list. So you'll find the best music that you like to pair with the wine that you're drinking once you scan the label. Very cool concept. So what we were doing here was tasting wine. So we were blindfolded. We had on music headphones. We listened to 2 different channels of music and could see how the wine would taste different with that. Chloe, you do want to go to a wine pairing sound event. It's amazing. And so what we did was, and I knew that this was going to happen. So we tried a white wine. We had one kind of music. We talked about it. Everybody took their blindfolds off and we talked about what we tasted. We put our blindfolds back on. We had another white wine, different music, tasted different. We talked about that. I knew this was going to happen. This was the same wine, but I can tell you that when I tasted it to 2 different musics, it tasted different. So really talking about those senses and how they can change. I just mentioned our roped up keynote speaker, Jessica, at the event where she was the keynote. She talked about flow and productivity and breathing and just taking moments in our day to just refocus. And by the end of that keynote, we had everybody with headphones on doing gamma breathing. 2 years ago, I could not imagine asking 120 people sitting in an audience to gamma breathe with me. It completely reframed some people's lives. And from here, they went into a welcome reception, having different conversations because now they were focused and present on the event that was happening. They weren't distracted by their phones or by, looking for somebody. They were all just like, okay, we're going to be present in this moment. And that was a really, really powerful thing to try. Keep it fun. Play is okay. Humans are collaborative. Humans are competitive. Games are fun, give us a sense of purpose. We talked about this with John Chen yesterday. We know that he is all about that engagement and that fun. So whether they are playing golf, whether they are doing board games, whether it is a giant Scrabble, it doesn't matter what we do, a game in an app, that can, maybe you're collecting photos and whoever has the best photo wins. There's so many ways that we can make it fun. We can't forget the fun, especially when we're together live again. Self-care, another really important intention. So this was, again, anybody who was at IMEX may have experienced this Be Well Lounge. We worked with in-house physicians who created an R lounge for us. R stands for rejuvenation. So you sat down in your lounger, you put on your blindfold, you had a little warm pack around you, you got your iPad, and it went through a 16-minute guided meditation, and you just came out a new person. It was quite amazing. And then, of course, a lot of events include runs or yoga or morning Be Fit, different ways of doing that. But we just now need to think a little bit differently about when and how we're integrating self-care in for people. We're all, I think, a little bit more conscious globally about taking care of ourselves after spending so long at home. And it's something that we can embed into our events in a variety of different ways. Anything that you guys are doing, whether it's for self-care, whether it's for rewarding, whether it's things you've tried to build trust or have fun or play games, please put those in the chat. We'd love to talk about them. And any questions you have, just get ready to bring those up. Intention, just let it happen. So here we go. This was a very great yoga. We did morning yoga. So this was an event that was called Camp Tailwind. And it is a group of women entrepreneurs. And we were up in the north of Ontario, so about 3 hours past Toronto. In September, it was 0 degrees at night. The entire camp now owns Roots onesies. The camp Tamaqua was founded by the owners of Roots. And so fortunately, their tech shop, that's what they had. But we are very happy to get up in the morning with mittens on and just be in that space. It was very much a space where there was sessions on NFTs and cryptocurrency that happened on the beach. There was, sessions about negotiation that happened in a hut. So there was lots of different ways of really making it fun, but sometimes you just have to let things happen. I don't know if this is I don't think that one is going to go. So no, it's not. But there's just so many ways that we can make space for serendipity. And I think that that's what we all appreciate. Triggering joy. So this is pretty fun. So triggering joy, this is site Texas, was in the Dominican Republic, and their CSR activity was equipment, including uniforms for a local youth baseball team. Well, they got out there, they played a game with them, they got crushed. That was okay. But it was just really, it was a lot of fun for all the adults and all the children who participated. Lots of different ways, again, that we can have joy. On the other side, a woman named Precious Williams. Precious is a 13-time national pitch champion. She is a force of nature, unlike I've ever seen. And what she did with us at IMEX was she taught people how to pitch themselves better. And we didn't have any elevators really, but we did escalator pitches. So she was stationed at the bottom of the escalator on Smart Monday. She would gather a group of people. Somebody would give a pitch about what they would say about themselves or their company. And then she would ride the escalator up with them, tell them how to do it better. They would come back down and redo their pitch. And it was so much fun. But it was also, people actually left. People came up and found me later and said, I'm going to do a pitch tomorrow or next week or next month, and I'm going to do it better now. So those are the kinds of things you want when we start to talk about things still needing to be content rich. We can be content rich and still trigger a lot of joy. Tell your best story. So we were in Ireland again, and we really wanted to take advantage of the storytelling nature that is historically an Irish thing. And so on the final closing night, we were in the Museum of Literature, ironically, but we created some storytelling sessions. So people who didn't sort of naturally fit into content because they had these very rich stories came and did a storytelling session. We had no idea if it was going to be popular. Obviously it was. And it was really great. On the other side is a speaker named Drew Tarvin. He talks about using humor in the workplace. When he stopped to do a break, what happened was, the baby started crying. And so we had a baby, and that was great. We loved it. Great storytelling does this. My interest is piqued. I care about you and your story. I want to know more. Ultimately, can we be friends? That is always my question. Can we be friends? And I love that I get to see so many friends here bring out their best. This is very fast. 2 presidents, one for the Sight Foundation, one for Sight in Ireland again this year. So much fun. Kevin in the church stands up. He said, I'm going to sing you a song. Everybody laughs because they think actually he's going to just do a speech. And he sang 2 beautiful liturgical prayers because we were in this amazing cathedral for the leadership dinner. And there wasn't, 2 standing ovations. He was like, I'm not sure if they liked it. I'm like, you just got 2 standing ovations. So that was something that we could do that was very special for the audience and the participants and very special for him. So sometimes we get to do that. On the other, it was our closing session. How many have been to boring closing sessions? You're just like, oh, please, is this, okay, they've recapped the entire conference for me. Fantastic. Well, what we did is we poured everybody a Bailey's Irish Cream, passed out some pretzels and brownies, and we had a bar set up on the stage. We had our destination host and our president as the bartenders. We invited up our key sponsors, and then we found 2 people throughout the event that had really great stories to tell. One was a 4th-generation Indian gentleman who was his first conference ever outside of India. And so he talked about his experience. And we found another young woman, 21 years old, 4th-year university student, paid her own way to come to attend the conference because she just thought it was really important for her personal growth. You can bet she'll be back again. So really, really fun. Foster curiosity. How can I experience that? Edible helium balloons. I'm going to show you what that looks like. An oxygen bar when you are in the mountains. Perfect. Okay, so this is what you do with this edible helium. It comes up as a big balloon. Put it on some candy. You suck in the candy, and then you talk like this, and it's really super fun. So I made a little video for my family. Triggering oxytocin, triggering happy endings, so important. And so we have, my favorite thing about this other picture is this was the final night. I told you everybody didn't tell me about being trapped on the glacier during the day and not being able to have that experience. Now we're at the final night of that experience. They've written some haiku poetry about their experience so far. We put those in cards. We mailed them back to them 2 weeks later. Which was a great idea from our friend Ruud Janssen, who helped, trigger that haiku moment. But in this picture, we have Kunal he's hugging the photographer, so I have no idea who took that picture. So I thought that was pretty great, that we could do that. And just to recap, we need to be strategic, we need to be creative, we need to think of different ways of doing things. Creative value, which is what we bring as event professionals, comes from the right idea delivered by the right team. And that is, as you can see by the many different things I just shared, there's no one right idea. Use empathy, understand your participants' need, and create an inclusive event. Consider how to design for peak moments and happy endings, and just intentionally design every piece of your event. So I think that that's it. And there we go.
I love it. I mean, I love the idea of intention, because a lot of the things that you talked about were great ideas. I have heard about them from other people who were there, like, of course, all your IMEX activations in particular, but they're not necessarily like super expensive, or, I think that's the piece that a lot of planners really have to do, is take a step back and just be intentional, really think about what is the experience that we want to create and how do we do that. And it doesn't always, I love the Precious Williams, the escalator up and down. I mean,
what I love is a speaker said yes to that. I'm like, I have a crazy idea. Do you think she would do that? Yes.
But it's also just like thinking of these ideas, that it's not, rocket science. It's not $1 billion budgets to create these meaningful experiences. Yeah, a lot of people, you're getting a lot of the wow emoji. So lots of great ideas. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry we don't have much time for comments, but I highly recommend that you guys follow up with Tahira. Get to follow all her work, because she does such interesting things. And do you want to do a quick plug for your book?
Oh, sure. I mean, absolutely. It's
You should
so
definitely.
I did write intentional event design at the end of 2017. And I went back at the end of 2021 because I thought, oh, this is going to be crap. I'm going to have to rewrite the whole thing. We've had a pandemic. And I went back and I realized that no, I'd actually written a lot of really good information that already covered digital and hybrid and virtual and live events and inclusion and wellness and all the things that are so important to us now. So I added 8 pages of lessons learned from 2022. It's on Amazon. And yeah, I mean, I feel really good about it. It's full of good tips and tricks and things that are going to help anybody who's planning events.
Yeah, you are one of many people who was doing digital and hybrid way before the pandemic. So, of course, it was forward thinking. Well, thank you so much for taking time to share all these ideas with us.
Thank
We
you.
always learn so much from you. Thank you.
Sorry, I was a minute over.
No, not at all. It's worth it. Always worth it. Thanks so much. Okay. So we missed technically our break, which is totally fine, because breaks are totally weird on virtual. So if you need to use the restroom or something, go do that. But you won't want to, because you'll want to hear our next speaker, Erica Speed. I love that so far today we've talked about virtual and capturing all the data and all of that information. We've talked about in person. And now we're going to talk to Erica about curating authentic spaces of diversity. I'm going to let her tell you what all that means. But Erica, we just decided we haven't seen each other in person since before the pandemic, which is a crime, I think.
Yes.
But I'm excited to see some of the stuff that you've been working on. I know you've been featured as an experiential designer in some big publications. So I'm going to let you take it from here, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. All right. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm really excited to be here today and to kind of speak about something that I'm very passionate about and hold deep to my heart, which is curating authentic spaces of diversity. And just to kind of give a little bit of background about me very quickly, I serve as the manager of live programming for Forbes, and I also have my own event planning agency, which is called The Creative Artisan, and where I focus on curating spaces of authenticity and purpose and connecting people in meaningful ways. So this is something I'm very passionate about and very excited just to kind of share and kind of get people's minds thinking about today. So things that I thought that would be interesting to kind of speak to this event would be defining what diversity is, expanding inclusion, thinking outside the box, and then also leaving a little room for Q&A. So with that being said, I'd love to go into hearing like what people think diversity is. And as always, it's one of those words that people kind of check off a box or think that they have in their mind about what diversity is. But I'd love to kind of hear from the audience some things that people think that diversity is and how that's kind of executed across the board. Hey, Ed, great to see you in here. looking forward to seeing what other people have to say in the chat about diversity. I think it's such a big word that people just say so many different things. And so I always am fascinated by that. That's definitely creating belonging. That's huge things as well too. And so while people are kind of thinking about that, I'll kind of allow more comments to come in, such as variety. Thanks, Dia, for sharing that too. And we'll kind of just keep that chat open throughout the context of what I'm talking about, because I think this is something that would be fun just to kind of hear what people are inspired to think about as we kind of go through. But according to the Global Diversity Practice, diversity is any dimension that can be used to differentiate groups and people from one another. And in a nutshell, it's about empowering people by respecting and appreciating what makes them different in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, education, and my slide is being hid for the last part, but I can't read, but you can get the gist of what that kind of entails. And so as we kind of think about like what diversity looks like, I would love for people to kind of share like some good things that they've seen like that have been done in diverse ways at some events. And I'm going to go into something a little bit more from there. Great Facebook user and getting input from various groups. That's something I'm definitely going to highlight later as well too. All right. So while people are continuing to think on that, I'm going to move into expanding inclusion, because that's another big buzzword that we kind of hear a lot about. And I'd love to hear some ways that people have seen inclusion kind of included in events, and kind of also talk about how and what that looks like in this day and age, whether it's virtual or if it's in person, or just in a common workplace as well. Heather has a great point about knowing the broader spectrum of voices and perspectives, the better, and intentionally working to have that representation. That's an excellent point and something I'm very passionate about kind of speaking to as well. And so one of the things I thought I would highlight are some of the traditional ways that have been thought of when people think about what expanding inclusion kind of looks like. I think a lot of times people look at diversity and inclusion as kind of checking off a box. Like they have to have a certain ethnicity. They don't really go deeply diving into what that looks like. They just kind of, okay, we know we need this type of ethnicity on this event, so we're going to check this box off. Another thing that people tend to kind of do is to go into the same wells of people. So they find one person that they like and they use that person to kind of represent the whole view of a certain ethnic group or a certain grouping or community. And that's not necessarily a good way to kind of look at diversity and inclusion either. And another thing is when you are creating events or creating any type of moment where you're wanting to kind of expand and dig deeper into this area, you also have to look at the pool of decision makers that you have that are looking into the selection process, whether it's picking speakers for an event or whether it's creating activations for an event. Just also kind of really looking into that. Is everybody that's the decision maker on your your executive committee, or does everybody look alike? Is everybody like-minded? You know, do you have any diversity of thought that's kind of operating in that space? So those are kind of some of the traditional ways that people have kind of hovered over into that space. I wanted to kind of challenge people to have expanded ways of thinking in that. And so on the right-hand side, you'll see some things that kind of trigger to that. And one is expanding beyond the traditional box set and entering other subsets of diversity. So what that looks like is just kind of, thinking about like, yes, I may have an African-American person on the panel, but how deep can I go into what that looks like? What other subsets exist in that? You may have somebody that is covering a certain disability. How are you servicing other disabilities like within that as well? So just really kind of challenging yourself to think a little bit deeper into what that looks like, and are you really being inclusive, or are you just kind of having that mentality where you're just kind of focusing in on one box? And so another expanded way of thinking is going deeper into the well and operating in a discovery mindset. So kind of if that's not an area of your zone of genius or where you live, you might want to just go into those pool of people that you tend to kind of rely on to be the voice of your diversity box, so to speak, and ask them who are the people that they are looking into, what are they're peeping in, and just kind of just going deeper into the pool and just kind of expanding your way of thinking into looking at what diversity could look like from that angle. Because if you're always just kind of operating and servicing from your same mindset, you're going to continuously do the same thing you're doing, and you're not really servicing the community in which you may want to reach, or doing any activations that are kind of being innovative and challenging in people in different ways, and kind of helping to kind of move that ball forward. And another expanded way of thinking is just including diverse sets of people into your mix of decision makers. So if you are a key decision maker where you're kind of, I know a lot of people like to work with people that are like-minded, because that's the safe zone. That's where it's best to kind of like operate and service from, and you can just kind of get things done a lot quicker. But it's good to kind of challenge yourself in ways of making sure that you have other decision makers as part of your team that may not look like you and they may not think like you. So those are kind of ways that you can kind of have expanded thinking into how you approach diversity and inclusion, and creating authentic ways of connection within your event space. So with that being said, let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. I want to make sure I didn't miss out anything for that. I wanted to hear if anybody has been inspired to kind of maybe think of things on the spot that may be creative for that. And I also wanted to kind of share some other things too that I didn't have room to highlight on this list, but you can also, you want to think about supporting different learning styles when you are having events. If you are a visual learner, you may want to challenge yourself in thinking of other ways of how people learn in different ways, and make sure you're having people that are inclusive of helping you think outside the box in that way as well. Another thing is you want to make sure that you're servicing both introverts and extroverts. I know a lot of times, I always call myself a socially antisocial, introverted extrovert. So especially working in events, I can live in kind of both spaces. But you want to make sure that when you're having spaces where people are supposed to be connecting, that you're servicing both types of people at your event. So it may be having something fun at your point of registration. You may want to kind of have something like a color-coded label that will kind of have people to ask different questions, or kind of get the ball rolling to help kind of get people more talking and more inclusive that way. You always want to kind of be thinking ahead of the attendee journey and what that looks like, and how you can kind of make that more innovative and refreshing and non-traditional in ways that people can connect in deeper ways. And something else that, like, even with your activations that you have at the event, just kind of thinking of ways that you're servicing different disabilities and other different people like within that space as well. And you also want to be aware of things like food allergies and restrictions. I know that people tend to want to serve the same kind of things with food. And I love the speaker before me. I thought Tahira had great shares from that as well too. But just kind of really kind of being forward focused and just having dynamic opportunities to kind of really just always be including people in different ways. So next, we're going to move into thinking outside the box. And so I'd love to hear in the chat some ways that you've thought outside of the box. And as you've heard me kind of share some things that hopefully may have triggered some ideas for you, I'd love to hear some examples of things that you can maybe do to think differently. Thinking outside the, when I say thinking outside the box, that's a good one, Dia. So it's more so kind of like thinking outside the box of like your mind, of like, I think a lot of times people tend to just kind of operate from how they think. So I think it's kind of good to kind of challenge yourself in different ways for that. So I'll give a few more examples for that. I'll wait for a few more examples for that. And let's see. Contribute to the techsytalk wheel of belonging. Oh, Jennifer sharing that too. I have to see what that is too. That sounds like something that's right up my alley that I would love. But yeah, Dia, exactly. Don't think that there is a box. Just think beyond the, color outside of the lines. I know a lot of times when children are growing up, you're taught to kind of think inside the lines and color inside the lines, but there's beauty in coloring outside the lines, and there's so much discovery that can happen in that. And so I think this is really key that you also kind of look into things like that as well. So feel free to continue to share examples, and if you think of anything in that. And if you have any Q&A, I'm open to Q&A in the comment box as well. But in conclusion, I just wanted to kind of share some key takeaways and things that maybe you can take with you as you're kind of looking into this idea of curating authentic spaces of inclusion and diversity within your events and within your day-to-day walk of life and spaces. You really want to think about holistic diversity and what it means in your situation, and really kind of challenge yourself in thinking about, is this something that you are fully executing, and how can you challenge yourself to kind of grow beyond that and to go to the next step and next level. You want to think beyond ethnicity. You want to kind of think and do deeper dives into all of the different types of diversity that exist, and make sure that you're kind of aiming to service those different metrics in different ways. You want to examine who your decision makers are. You want to make sure that you're having different thought leadership within those circles of people that are thinking about what diversity and inclusion looks like within an event. And if everybody looks the same, that's a decision maker, you want to challenge yourself and to move beyond that. You want to look for fresh and innovative thought leaders within the space, and don't just continue to swim in the same pool of people. There's people that are servicing in many different ways beyond the same people that you may continue to go out to. And those people that you do go out to will probably, we think it's really thoughtful of you to kind of ask them for their opinion of people that they can expand beyond themselves as well. So that's another good takeaway. And if you aren't sure about something, seek to be inclusive by authentically asking others who may not be represented for their thoughts. That is something that, you know, people love to talk about themselves, and people love to kind of be asked about things that kind of take them off their guard a little bit and to kind of think in creative ways. So just kind of challenge yourself to do that. And lastly, just be intentional about what you're wanting to create in an authentic way. That's where like the magic happens. So you want to be purposeful, you want to be intentional, you want to be authentic in how you're approaching curating spaces of authenticity and diversity. You really want to make sure that you're approaching it from a way that if you were a member of a different community, that you would feel included in an authentic and meaningful way. So that's a kind of a good way, just to, that old golden rule of treat others how you would want to be treated. And sometimes it's just such a simple act as that. It's just kind of taking yourself outside of the box of that. So with that being said, I think I have kind of covered what I was going to cover in that. I welcome any questions, and thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you, Erica. I love that you're talking about diversity in a diverse way. We've been talking about it yesterday and today, and I guess you probably knew from the agenda, but of course you had to write being intentional about diversity, and we just had the session with Tahira, so thank you so much for that. Someone says proposing different types of activities, reggae class, hair braiding, henna hand painting, really thinking outside the box. And really this comes down to knowing your audience as much as it's nice to say, you know, all these things, we want to be diverse in all these ways, check. But like, is it so that you can say you did it? Or is it because you know your audience and certain things will speak to that? We talked yesterday about neurodiversity and thinking about, you know, how your attendees like to learn and how they process information. All of this stuff really matters. So thank you so much for taking some time to join us today.
Oh, no problem. This is great. I'm really enjoying the event so far and all the shares. I'm taking lots of notes as well. So just grateful to be a part of this community and to be a part of this event.
Yeah, you've been with us since the early days. We were talking yesterday about like planner crawls and all. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So our next session is one that I am always excited to do, which is a few of my favorite things. It is kind of a techsytalk staple. I typically do this every year at the last session, but I decided to put it right here in the middle this time. And it's an opportunity for me to share a few things, tools, technology mostly, because of course it is called techsytalk, that I use and love that I think you might also. I would really love to see you put in the chat a few of your favorite things, because of course there are just so many tools out there. What I have done in the past is done like 50 plus tools in 10 minutes. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I've chosen not to do that today. But it's not going to be quite as fast paced. You're going to get some good, hopefully you'll get some good ideas and some good tools to use, but don't worry. Usually I'm talking so fast, I can't even like catch my breath. All right. So Canva, I think you guys are probably all very familiar with Canva. This is one of my favorites. We use it for speaker graphics and all this stuff, but I recently did learn how to use it to create countdown videos, promo videos. The video editing in this is like so, so easy. If you use Canva, put it in the chat. Let me know that you love it. It's one of those platforms that I always think everyone knows until I'm talking to someone. And then they're like, oh, I've never heard of that. Looks really interesting. So I am mentioning it right here at the top with some that you probably know, but maybe you don't know about the video editing. I've been using Canva for a long time. I see Dia uses it. Another Facebook user loves it. Other people think it's amazing. Great tool, but I really haven't used it for videos until very recently, like this week. I've been playing with it for a few weeks, but absolutely love it, Sherry says. And Dia says creating in and out cards, which is a really great idea. All right, number 2. I'm not going to do these in order. So this is my newest obsession, using your iPhone as your camera. I'm not doing it today only because I really, especially when we are live, I am terrified of doing mixing too many things. But you now can either buy a little gadget, or I had ours 3D printed, and you hook it right over your webcam, MagSafe charger, your iPhone right to it, and it uses the back of your camera as your iPhone camera. The quality is way better. You can also use their mode where it follows you. Of course, right now in the moment, I'm forgetting what it's called, but when you move, the camera follows you so that you don't get all these weird moments. You can use portrait mode, spotlight lighting. It's so much better. I think the joke is that Apple has just decided they're never going to improve the camera on their Mac, so they'll just let you use your iPhone. But you just have to update to the newest Ventura operating system, and then put it right on there. You do need to buy a little device like this one. If you want the 3D printing templates, just let me know, send me a message or something, and I'll give you the one that we used. But you can also buy them, like Belkin, of course, has the rights at this point to do it, and it's out there now. So I'm sure you can find them all the time. Okay, next, I would like to tell you about the iOS 16 photo cutout. I do like Photoshop, and I am a big fan of it, but for those of you who maybe do not use it, or even for myself when I'm on the go and I just have to do something quickly, there's this new feature with iOS 16, and I do understand that not everyone is an Apple user, but these are my favorite tools. So Apple products it is. There's this new feature in iOS 16 where you can actually just press and hold a subject in a picture, and it cuts out just the subject. You can paste it into messages. You can put it on a background or some other image. And I've used this actually a lot for the speaker images that we share before conferences, being able to take someone's photo, just pop that one piece out. And it's actually quite accurate. Even this sample that I'm showing you from something I found online is a pretty bad example because it has all this extra space around his ear, which I really don't see most of the time. Dia, you made my day. She said she finally gave into iPhone. I feel like I have to have a party every time someone switches over. So we won't talk too much about iPhone stuff and Mac stuff. All right, now I'm going to talk about Toby. This is a lifesaver. I can see our speakers behind the scenes here. I can't see everyone else's faces, but let me just ask how many of you have at least 40 tabs open right now. I always have too many tabs, and it's always hard to go back and find things that I'm looking for, especially things we use Google Drive a lot. So I'm clicking into folders and finding the files. With Toby, it's a Chrome add-on, and you can organize all of your tabs. So when you open a new tab, it suddenly has all the organization that you want. So for example, I have a client projects, and I have the trackers for each client project. And all you have to do is click on the tab that you want, and it pops it open. So that way you don't have to keep everything open. And more importantly, you're not always looking for the things that you're using all the time. It's a little bit hard for me to explain it. So I highly recommend you just go there and download it and try it, and you'll find that you love it. All right. Proposify. I usually try to make sure that my stuff that I share here has never been shared before. But this one I actually love so much that I do think I shared it 2 years ago. And there's still so many people who've never heard of it. I use Proposify for all of our proposals and contracts. And it's so great to be able to drag and drop sections of content that we use over and over again. For example, when we're putting together our scope of work for planning clients, we have, on-site staffing, we have venue research, we have all these things that we do over and over again, and you can kind of just drag and drop and put them into this new proposal. It also uses all the variables. So in the contract, every place you want it to have, the client's name, you'll never again send one of those awkward proposals or contracts that has the wrong company name or person's name in it. So definitely recommend this. It also helps you track all of your incoming revenue and outgoing revenue. Incoming. I don't know why I said outgoing. Incoming. Tracks all that money coming in. Let's track that and all the contracts, what has been signed. Authy is great for every app at this point is asking for two-factor authentication, and this app makes it a lot easier. You can just pull up the app on your phone and select which platform you need the token for, and it will give you the token, and then you can go ahead and put it in on the website. Anchor. We've been using Anchor for years. It actually started out as a simple platform just for kind of sending messages back and forth. It's turned into a very powerful podcasting platform by Spotify at this point. I think they bought it, but they allow you to create your shows and then you can actually monetize. You can even put in your own ads, either their ads or other people's ads into your show so that you can monetize. We do use Anchor for our Event Hustler podcast, and we will be using it to create a podcast of just all the content that's been shared over these 3 days so that you can go back and listen audio only back to back, which I know we all like to binge watch content, binge listen to podcasts. There are tons of podcasting platforms, but they have really good analytics, super simple to use. You can distribute it to Apple and all the popular places. So highly recommend. Let me take a break and see. Dia, to find Toby, I would just look up Toby Chrome extension, and I'll get you the link after this. Someone says, what tool would you recommend for speakers to pre-record their presentations in video and slides? I actually use StreamYard, which is what we are using right now. Heather says she loves Social Live, which is another great one, very similar. We do have a lot of our speakers using Zoom and things like that, but that could be something to consider. And Chloe says she started making a resources list in Airtable. So I think that's instead of Toby or in addition to Toby. I like something like that too, but this is, I use Toby because it's just like every time you open a tab, it's right there. Let me know what you think, Chloe. Okay, next we have LastPass. This is one of those things like everyone should be using. Every time I talk to people, they're not using it. It's a password manager. I think it's very important to use for a lot of different reasons, but the one that I wanted to feature today is their emergency access. So not only can you sync all your passwords and organize them by type, you can share access to passwords. So let's say in your organization, you could make sure that your team has access to all your passwords for business needs, but they don't necessarily have your passwords for all your personal stuff, for example. But most importantly, God forbid something were to happen to you, you can actually set up a person who is then able to have access to everything if you were to, have an emergency or just completely not be available. You can assign who that person would be. And for me, it's my husband. It's one trusted contact who can take care of everything. I mean, this is just a huge problem these days, is that our whole lives are online. So we want to make sure people can access. All right. I got to move faster. This is a really new cool one called lasso.io, a great platform for managing your event staffing. There's scheduling, communication. You can even pay all of your staff through this. Definitely check it out. And it's just very simple. You can use it on the iPad. You can use it on the phone. But when you especially have large events where you're coordinating a lot of staff, makes it seamless. Experience profiles. We're going to dive into this a little bit more with the Wheel of Belonging in a few minutes. And you know that we used the experience profiles this year for Techsy Talk. It's such a great way to identify how your attendees are, how they want to experience your event. And so I highly recommend that you check them out. The information is on our website. It's here, obviously. And we're going to dive into a session with them right after this to talk a little bit more, not just about the experience profiles, but about that Wheel of Belonging that we talked briefly about yesterday. I'm going to put up, there is a link in the chat on LinkedIn and on Facebook, so please check it out. And you guys can contribute to that while I'm talking, because we're going to dive into that in just a moment as well. Twine for Zoom. Thank you to all of you who joined us this morning for speed networking, and we are going to use this plugin tomorrow as well. We used Twine last year. It's a great networking platform. They have expanded their opportunities for how you can do it. So it's not just one-on-one speed networking, but you can do small groups, you can do longer times, you could do more of a table format where people can move around, which is what we will do tomorrow. So if you missed the networking tomorrow at the close of the event, we're going to do some of that kind of networking. And the big change from last year is that they are now integrated directly into Zoom. Chloe, I don't think they have any association with Microsoft Teams. It's free to use and super easy. I love it. So definitely check it out. They're great, especially if you're using like Zoom meetings for internal team meetings or something, to do like a quick icebreaker or an opportunity for people to break out in ways that are way cooler than the breakouts just straight in Zoom. Everyone is talking about Discord, and I think Discord is essentially a nicer version of Slack. It's more private. There are tons of communities on Discord, so I highly recommend that you check them out, because there's probably, I don't know if there is an event community. I'm sure that there is. I'm not part of any, but it is a great platform for people to just connect with each other. And as you can see, it looks very much like Slack. Circle is another community platform that we really like, as you know, because we have our platform there. We have our community there. You can go join and check it out. It's all free, techsytalk.com/member. And what I love about these platforms is that it's so much easier to connect with the people who are part of it. There's a member directory. We can upload past video content. We can host our events in there. We can post when they're happening, and you can actually get a notification that it's happening, unlike Zoom, Facebook events where everything gets lost in the algorithm. So huge fan of these other platforms, even though, as I mentioned yesterday, there's always a challenge of getting people to use these things because they're not where you're spending all your time, but definitely one of my favorite things. And as I said, I didn't do as many as I have been doing in the past. In the past, I used to do like 50 things in this presentation, but first of all, I've been using a lot less stuff, especially because I haven't been traveling as much and things in life have changed a lot. Some of the things I've really been doing that I love are turning off notifications for different apps, moving apps like social apps off my first page on my iPhone so that I don't even see those things come up, using the focus mode on iPhone. I'm sure Android has something similar to this, where it's basically do not disturb. You can make it so that you can't be using your social apps and you can't get lost down those rabbit holes, and you can just not be bombarded by a billion notifications and phone calls and texts. So I've been doing that, and tons of unsubscribing, not just from emails, but from groups. I think we are all part of so many Facebook and LinkedIn groups that don't provide us any value. And so really cleaning all of that out to make less noise. And so with that, I am excited to wrap up this session, but also to announce that we are bringing, well, it never really went away, but we are putting the focus again on our Ignite program. Ignite is a consulting program that I launched, I think 3 years ago, and we did 2 cohorts of people. It was an entire year-long program. And that community is still probably the most engaged community that we have ever had. We still meet monthly. We still do all kinds of things together. We work together. Jennifer was one of our Ignite clients and is producing today's event with me and produces all kinds of events with us. We partner with each other. It's a really great community. So I'd encourage you to just check it out. It's more on the business side. So it's more for people who own their own businesses in the events industry. It doesn't have to be a planner, and who really want to be more intentional. We're trying to be more intentional across the board, not just with our events, but with our businesses. Many of you know that I have had 2 kids during the pandemic. And so all of my kind of brain is focused on making the business work for me and not the opposite. And so this is now a community that we're relaunching with intention to grow, so that you all will be able to create businesses that serve you and not the other way around. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening to me spiel for really, really fast paced. Let me see if there's, thank you, Jennifer. She says, Ignite is amazing. That community, that little group of event planners that we have right now is just the best. So I'm so excited. Robin says there ought to be a job called unsubscriber in chief. I have a folder in my inbox where I just put all the things I want to unsubscribe from. And Courtney, who works with us, she just goes in and unsubscribes. She that is at least part of her job responsibility. Megan says, do not disturb is my BFF. I feel the same way. And Chloe, Liz, do you feel the software fees are a good deal compared to, for example, paying for extra staff on your team to do the same thing? Totally depends. I would say based on the dollars per hour that you would be paying someone to do the work, you do want to make sure that there is good. I mean, there's obviously value in paying people to do the work, but there's a lot of the stuff, especially the stuff that I was sharing today, that it does not have to be some big person that you've hired that costs you thousands of dollars per year. Look at all these igniters. Yay. Thanks, everyone. So I think it depends, but yeah, I think most of the time, pretty much everything I shared is either free or very inexpensive. So I think they are great deals compared to paying for extra staff to do this stuff for you. But in the whole mood of what we've been talking about, I am not a fan of do everything yourself, work 90 hours a day and kill yourself doing that. So to an extent, otherwise you should hire people. Okay, so that is all I have. I'm cutting into the precious time of Storycraft Lab, and we want to make sure I'm not going to cut you off, so you'll have your full time. But I'm excited to jump into this Wheel of Belonging. This is our last activity for today, and then we'll wrap things up. But it's really, I think, a great way to start thinking about how we design our events to create belonging. We shared that link yesterday. We've shared it in the chat again today. I'm going to go ahead and do that again now so that you have it handy. It's a working mural board. If you're not familiar with it, all you have to do is go in. You can put your name, or you don't even have to. You can just join anonymously. There's some instructions on the left, and I'm sure the Storycraft team will walk us through it in the next few minutes as well. But please take a look, and let me introduce Naomi Claire, who was with us yesterday. We have Maya here as well. Thank you for joining us. This Wheel of Belonging, I told you yesterday that I'm going to geek out on this, and I started doing that yesterday, and I need more time with it, but I'm excited we get to spend some time today talking about it.
Yeah, no worries. And we're excited to come back to it. It's a subject that, we just get really geeky, but also passionate about, because there's so much good stuff that's baked in there. So we're excited to get everybody involved in this. And I'm glad that Liz, you've been in there and doing some entering in of info. For those of you that are interested to join us in the mural, there is a QR code at the top right of your screen here, so you could go ahead and scan that. And I think Maya, we might be putting it in the comments as well, the link to the mural. And I think
I think it should be in the chat.
Nice, that's awesome. Thank you, Liz. Liz has just popped it in there as well, so you can just jump in to this space. It's like a shared whiteboard. If you want to add any comments, you just double click and it will create a little sticky note for you. Or you can fill in one of the circles that we've pre-populated with, and Control D to duplicate and make another one. Just would ask that you don't delete anybody else's comments that are in there. So very, very intuitive to use. For those of you that want to get creative, on the left-hand side there, you can look at icons and shapes and that kind of thing. So the idea, for those of you that don't know about the Wheel of Belonging, just very broadly, this comes out of our work with Google XI, where we started to look into how we can deliver experiences that really understand and engage our audiences at a new level. And what I shared yesterday was the journey that we've been on, where we've uncovered the importance of belonging in really driving and designing an experience for your audiences that resonates in a very, very powerful way. So what we found through our conversations with Google and then with the community more broadly is that people tend to come at defining belonging when we ask them, what does belonging mean to you? From three different areas. The first place where they usually cut in, and Maya, maybe you can zoom to the definitions on the lower left for a second here, is that people kind of start by thinking, what is the meaningfulness of this experience to my life and my needs? So what we end up finding through those conversations is that people talk about a belonging experience that was resonant, that left a lasting impression, that left them considering possibilities and things that really helped them operate as a better version of themselves within the frameworks of their life. This was, I felt belonging at this experience because it was so meaningful to what I need to operate. So one of the stories that we heard here was from Amit Katabi, who actually runs a series of events that are based around philosophical thought in Israel. So it was a really interesting perspective. And she talked about how people felt belonging to that group because they find that they are connected through a philosophical mindset that allows them to connect beyond anticipated silos or typical marketing segments. That when she offered up a set of events that were just about philosophy and reflection, the diversity of voices that came to that place and found belonging together was mind-blowing for her. So that's one example of how a meaningful journey took this group towards belonging. Maya, do you want to talk to us about the feeling, the emotions?
Yeah. So with feeling, immersive experiences are emotional and visceral. They're felt, expressed, and connect us to the moment, to ourselves, and to others. And they can be a frequency of feeling that's experienced individually, but when shared with others, they can become transcendent in their power to create belonging. So in this section, we asked participants to describe a time that they felt a sense of connection to those around them at the experience. What elements evoked those feelings of immersion, and then just to complete the sentence and thought, when I belong, I feel ... So we had some amazing responses shared for this one as well. For example, Julie shared that when we feel safe, we feel seen and heard, it allows us to be more vulnerable in what we do. And then when we're more vulnerable, we tend to then share more, do more, and make deeper connections. And that's really an awesome sentiment. And then along those lines, Jordan also shared, when we need to foster spaces where we feel safe to be authentic to ourselves. Can you belong if you're pretending to be someone else? So I really liked both of these thoughts around feeling, but there were so many interesting perspectives that came up with this prompt as well.
And I think it was through the feeling component of the discussions that we really started to uncover the fact that belonging was a journey for each of the individuals that were sharing with us. Oftentimes they described entering an experience in a certain state, feeling a certain way, right? And through the design of that experience, they were able to emerge at a different place on their journey, closer to belonging. They may have begun with some skepticism and asking that question, do I belong here? And through a series of interventions and activations, the design of the event was able to be more meaningful for them. And then finally, the next section that we looked at here for thinking about getting to belonging was something that we called magical, which is really about being transformed in some way. It's something that in contrast to meaning, right, where you're learning how to operate within your current frameworks, the magical approach to belonging is something that shifts your perspectives, opens up new points of view, new kind of mental models, and results in this kind of change of behavior or trajectory. And when we were listening, there were many conversations around magic, and there were moments where people were like, oh, I have to process whether this is the right word for me. And they agreed in the end that it was. But what we saw here was interesting in terms of the role of people. Similar to feeling in a way, but the journeys were different according to how shared versus solitary. People wanted that kind of transformative experience to be, so from Klaus, who is Klaus Rasted, who heads up the College of Extraordinary Experiences and is very active in the LARPing community in Europe. He shared a much more kind of social view of magical transformation, which was all about kind of sharing these moments with other people. For him, that was what helped him get to the belonging feeling, that sense of universality. Wow, within this whole amazing universe, I found you few people that I wouldn't have expected to share this moment with, but I am, and it's making a memory, and I'm enjoying this moment with you all.
Yeah. I also really liked Justin's quote that he shared with us. His was, "There's magic in discovery. The recipe I look for in creating magical experiences is that sense of universality in the work, where it's inclusive of virtually everyone and anyone can take something from it." I thought that was very magical.
Yeah. And his story, actually, when he talked about this moment of belonging, was one that was much more solitary. So he described an experience that he went on his own. He was exploring this museum and this body of work by an artist. And he described this solitary experience, this feeling of discovery, sense of agency in making choices about where to turn and where to go, and having a very kind of personal, reflective, introspective moment. And yet, when he finally arrived at belonging, it was when he could share his thoughts and his process and his experience with other people. So we did start to see, as people draw towards the center of belonging, and maybe we can head to the wheel here, Maya, is that, the role of others becomes much more prevalent the closer we are to belonging. There can be some variety at the beginning, but as we approach belonging, that's where other people get much more involved. So that was really interesting to us, that kind of social connection. So what we're asking you all to do within this mural, and we're going to leave this open for the next month, is to use it as a place for you to reflect on what belonging means for you and to share with others within the techsytalk community. And then for you as designers, it's an opportunity for you to come back and take a look at what everybody has contributed. And perhaps it becomes food for thought for your own experience designs in the future. For us with the experience profiles, it became another lens through which we could understand some of these results. And that's one of the updates that we will be releasing in 2023 with the experience profiles, is a new consideration of how the different profiles reach belonging. So it's something that can be more kind of planned around at your different events using the experience profiles as well. So this is, you can see here, we've got some great thoughts here, with the feeling section. I love the comment that music plays into feeling a lot. Yes, it does. I think if you think about feeling from a touch perspective, understanding the reverb of bass, that's something that can really kind of allow you to connect with your environment and in that kind of touch-oriented way, which is really interesting. And I love the vulnerability and transparency, a key comment as well. Sometimes when things go wrong, it creates a shared sense of belonging. I would almost kind of take that blue sticky and put it in the magical section, wouldn't you, Maya?
Yeah.
And maybe we could do that periodically, because it kind of seems, that's something that definitely kind of, or sits on the cusp. There you go. So it might be more of a purple, but it's about that shared experience that that maybe, you know, is undefined, unexpected, completely serendipitous, right? But it's a shared moment, and it's how you react to that. So I'm looking at the time, and I am, yeah, I think we're getting close to our time here, Liz. I'm not sure if you want to come back and just share some of your thoughts. I know you've been pre-populating here, but is there anything that you were curious about with the Wheel of Belonging that you'd love for us to share?
Yeah, this is so great. Dia says Naomi and team, of course, have done their work. This is amazing. I want to encourage those who are watching, and we will share this in our community again over the course of the next month, to not be shy. Go ahead and double click and put those circles. There are no wrong answers. I think it's great to see the different perspectives and to see what someone thinks as being a moment of magic or a moment of feeling. And I love the idea of coming back in here as we're designing these experiences and really thinking like, oh, it's interesting that someone thinks music plays a lot into this. And like,
Yeah.
how could we leverage that in our events? And we were talking earlier that these don't have to be expensive things that we implement to make people really feel like we've designed for them. So don't be shy. Go ahead and fill those in. And in terms of the three kind of categories, where do you think people, I think for some people, mural in general, but even this whole concept can be a little overwhelming. It's like, okay, there's lots of
Yes.
lots of things going on. If I was a planner coming into this after people have contributed and I really wanted to digest it and find some meaning in here, what do you think is the best way, either a mural trick or just overall philosophy, to tackle all the good content that's in here?
Yeah, you know, I think if you've got an event in mind, that is always the best way kind of to provide a lens for that synthesis and concretization, because you come in with an idea for how do I apply this, right? Which helps to take it from, gosh, now I'm going to spend an hour trying to interpret all of this, and then you know, and to what end? So I think if you actually use it as a tool in that regard, you can export a PDF to go through there as well. Now, there's also there are ways within Mural that you can organize sticky notes and pull out word clouds as well. So we could certainly provide some tips there also to folks. Right, Maya? I think I'm looking at you as a mural magician.
Yeah, if you go up here where my mouse is, you can download there. You can download sections, the whole thing, zooming in and out. We've included some tips on just how to use Mural as well in the upper left-hand corner. And yeah, I would just take some time to also zoom in and kind of read through some of these quotes that we've provided from people in the past.
I think that's an important one. You can actually, if you go in and you find that there are certain statements here that just spark an inspiration for you, you can select those and then just download those specific elements, which helps to say, all right, so what I'm taking away from this at this moment are these three things that I'm going to prioritize. And that helps to structure a little bit of the organic nature of the conversation. Now, we will be releasing a white paper at the end of this year, possibly very early next year, that talks in a more systemic fashion, less organic, uses full sentences and paragraphs, that really kind of outlines those different elements of our insights from the Wheel of Belonging in ways that are you know, a little bit more traditional or expected. So that's something that we'd be happy to share with everybody. As soon as that comes out, we'll put it on blast, and we'd love everybody's thoughts there as well.
Yeah, you know, our Techsy Talk audience likes the unexpected, but I'm sure they will love the white paper as well. So please do share that with us, and we will definitely pass that around. And I can just say, we talked about intention with Tahira. I've mentioned it a few times already today. I think this this level of intention towards our events is so important. And Naomi, I just want to thank you and the team for helping us be very intentional about Texty Talk. We had several meetings planning, talking about the content and looking at the different kinds of ways that we are going to share information, the different kinds of experiences that we want to create. Having that time and having a partner who can say, because sometimes, as the planners, we just get so in the weeds of like agenda and we have to get people to sign up. And
I'm overwhelmed, right? I think sometimes a lot of the time we have so much to do and achieve that when we talk about making that space for intention, there's a concern about how do I possibly open up within my process that is so crammed, all of that deep dive, all of that big thinking. And that's where I love a tool like the experience profiles or something like this, because we can, within an hour's meeting, just dive to that level with friends in a way that we're like, oh, okay, I can see what we're going to do here. We actually plugged in pretty late in the process, I think, with you.
Yeah. When you guys started working with us, one of my biggest fears was like, we don't have enough time to do all this thinking. It's too late. But we really only had, I think, 2-hour-long meetings. And we looked at the agenda, and it probably was helpful that the agenda was pretty nailed down by the time we had a conversation. But I had a concern about that. And really, it was very seamless. And because you've already put in all this time thinking, we didn't have to design experience profiles. They were all
there, and that's
all easy to plug into, which was so great.
And of course, some of it is, most of it is because of Maya's super skills and powers. Just like ninja when it comes to empathy, the empathy ninja. New title today. But it's, and I think that's what we're seeing people use the experience profiles for a lot, is like, okay, we've got this really nice set of IP. It's robust. It's been tested by Google. We, repeatedly, and all of these other folks that have used it. And we're able to come in and say, how does it make sense to apply this to your needs and your project right now?
Yeah, so great.
There was one that was, we worked with a transportation company. Their audience was male and middle-aged, and they said, listen, I don't think that they're going to want to know that they're a harmonizer or an explorer. So what we did was we reskimmed the whole thing, and it became a quiz on what route are you? And you could take the quiz and find out if you were Route 95 or Route 66. And it was so easy to do that because the product was there and we just had to adapt it for what made sense for their audience. Which was exciting to see, actually.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a great way to do it. Well, thank you so much for walking us through this. I do encourage everyone to kind of take some time, because I do think there's a lot of reflection in this. Take some time to think about these experiences and put them right here so we all can share from the collaborative thinking. But thank you so much for walking us through this, ladies, and for being part of helping us be more intentional about the design of Texty Talk.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us, Liz.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, so that wraps up day 2. I cannot believe it. How are we at the end of day 2? Tomorrow is our last day, and it's a short number of sessions. We are going to talk to Dalia Algazar, who is always a fabulous speaker. We talked today about virtual. We talked about in-person. She's going to bring it together with hybrid. And of course, we have our famous keynote speaker, Savannah Bananas, Jesse Cole, who's going to talk about not only how he has driven this viral baseball brand, and really, I mean, this guy is everywhere. If you haven't seen it, look at ESPN, look up Savannah Bananas, Jesse Cole. You're going to see so much content from him. He's really cool. I hear he's going to be in his yellow tuxedo, surprise, surprise, but he's really going to be talking about designing a fans first experience. And it's going to, I think, bring all of the things we've talked about over the past few days together. So very excited for those 2 sessions. Check out the agenda at techsytalkglobal.com. Join us afterwards for some closing networking. I always like to emotionally just check out at the end of the day, but my team tells me people like to network and hang out afterwards. So we're going to do that closing happy hour. Shout out to Diana, especially for that. And thank you so much for joining. Make sure you check out all the recordings in our Circle community. That is available right now. As soon as we end this stream, the recording is there. So check that out in case you missed anything. And we will be continuing to share links and things. So thank you for being a part of it. And we will see you all tomorrow.